But it's worse because today in American colleges, they even challenge the very notion that there's such a thing as knowledge, that there's such a thing as truth. So if there's no truth and there's no knowledge, as most modern philosophers claim, then how can we learn anything from history when history is just a subjective, emotion of some tribe experiencing something, which is based on your ethnic background and whether your mother beat you or not. There is no facts, there is no truth. That's how history is written today. I mean, modern historians today will tell you there is no such thing as history in terms of objective facts. There's your interpretation of history and my interpretation of history, and I'm going to interpret history the way the American Indian, I think the American Indian would have, if they were post-Kantian, whatever. Right? But that's postmodernism. Its knowledge doesn't exist. And that's what we're teaching at our universities. That is the dominant thing we're teaching in our universities, in the humanities. So all the other stuff about economics and history is irrelevant. Because if you believe there's no knowledge, there is no economics. And anything anybody says is right. And anything anybody does is okay. And whether something works or not is a fluke. Because what goes out with knowledge, when you throw out knowledge, what else gets thrown out? Almost necessarily. Principle. Any kind of system, any kind of principle gets thrown out. If there's no knowledge, I don't know when I jump off of this that I'm going to actually fall. I mean, it turns out that usually that happens. Most human knowledge is inductive knowledge, yet we've thrown out induction in our schools. We don't teach it. We don't regard it as important. And yet, when we say we learn from history, what are we doing? We're inducing. We're saying this works and this works and this works. We understand the cause of why it works, and we can derive a principle for why it's working. But if you reject induction, you reject logic, you reject knowledge, economics is gone. So ethics is important. It shapes how we view history. Epistemology is important because it shapes whether we think history is even a field of knowledge or whether there is such knowledge as history or economics. And of course, the same is true of metaphysics. Metaphysics is a study of what is, right? Now, I believe that reality is what it is, that it exists. It doesn't depend on our consciousness to exist. We don't make it up. It's there whether we close our eyes or not. But if you don't believe that, and again, modern philosophy doesn't believe that, if you're making reality up, then what is? Remember Bill Clinton? See, I don't think Bill Clinton thinks he lies. I think he thinks he's making up reality. I think he was a really good student. He's supposedly really, really bright. That's what everybody says, right? I think he thinks he's making up reality because that's what his professors taught him he was. We're all making up reality. There is no reality, real reality. Even in metaphysics, we're challenged today. And again, if you don't have a solid metaphysics, in a sense of A is A, it actually exists, it's real, and you have reason and the ability, therefore, to observe it, then knowledge is impossible, and economics and all of this are futile. And all our attempts to teach economics and to teach history and to do Austrian economics and this economics, it's futile. We're talking to the wall. Nobody's listening. They can't. They don't have the cognitive mental tools to listen. To really understand, you have to have what? To change somebody's mind, they have to be thinking. They have to be using reason. But we don't teach anybody to think. We barely believe in thinking anymore. And philosophically, we don't believe in thinking. We don't believe in reason. We don't believe in rationality. We don't even believe in reality. So you're literally not talking to anybody. Because for somebody to exist on the other side, there has to be a reasoning mind. And if there's not a reasoning mind, it's gone. And this is why it is so important that we focus on the philosophical arguments. It's so important that we start with really basic philosophical education. It's not enough to talk about economics, to talk about history. It's not even enough to talk about morality. Even morality. When I do a lot of talks about ethics and how they apply, I'm assuming people out there accept certain premises, which I can guarantee you at the debate last night, they didn't. That reality is what it is, that reason is our basic tools of survival, that knowledge all comes from reason, that there is no other source of knowledge, that knowledge exists, that there is such thing as truth. We assume that, but that's a difficult assumption to make, and that's what we have to educate our kids for. That's what we have to educate the culture about. We have to educate them about the efficacy of reason. And then once you get that, I think the rest is actually quite easy, because facts are on our side. History actually does support our case. Economic theory is actually being worked out already, by really great economists. We know how the economy works. We know how to get it going. We know what doesn't work. We know how to destroy it. We know what to do. But first you have to have that cognition. You have to have people thinking. You have to have them philosophically on at least a similar page to you. And this, at the end of the day, is the real importance of Ayn Rand. Everybody is, or most people, not everybody. Most people are attracted to Ayn Rand because of a political message. Maybe because of an ethical message. But what Ayn Rand provides us is an entire philosophical system. An entire philosophical system for living life, which means for living in reality, because there is a reality. And it's only when we can communicate effectively that entire philosophy and get people to buy in to that philosophy are we going to make real progress towards capitalism and towards real freedom. And that means that we have to argue against the notion that consciousness creates reality. Reality is what it is. A is A. The Greeks got it 2,000 plus years ago. The law of identity holds. Things are what they are. Not what you wish them to be. Not what you'd like them to be. Not what Krugman says they are. But they are what they are. And we have this incredibly powerful tool, which is human reason, which enables us to understand reality, to know reality, to integrate the facts, to come up with principles. Principles, what a notion in the world we live in today. Truths that are always true, because reality is what it is and the law of identity holds. And that if I jump off of this, I'll always fall down, at least as long as I'm on this planet. Right? And we have to reject the idea of revelation and the idea of emotion and the idea that truth doesn't exist. All of that needs to be explicitly dealt with, explicitly rejected, explicitly turned away. And of course, we have to advocate that because reason is our tool for knowledge, our tool of survival, and only we as individuals have reason, that we own our own life, that it's our life to lead as we choose to. That morality is not about sacrifice. It's not about a brother's keeper. It's not about others. It's about making the best of your own life. So to complete kind of the political revolution that was the founding of this country, what this country really needs, what this world really needs today, is the philosophical revolution that Ayn Rand is giving us. So let's, as we fight for greater freedom, as we fight for capitalism, let's remember to fight for philosophy, for Ayn Rand's philosophy, for objectivism. That, at the end of the day, is what's going to save this world. That, at the end of the day, is what's going to teach people to actually learn from history. Thank you all.